right, welcome to another CyberSec Tuesday, guys. We meet up here every Tuesday night talking about information security at 6 p.m. Pacific time on our Discord server. For those that are watching us from the recording, you can check us out live every Tuesday night at null44.org/join. I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, ArcLight 6. They're a consulting firm specializing in engineering and cybersecurity, networking, and software engineering. So if you're interested in checking them out, it's arclight6.com. We'll get their information on the live stream or on the stream for that. Tonight we got Sponger going to be doing a talk on ShinyHunters and Scattered Spiders, in their whole exploiting of third-party SaaS tools to compromise organizations. So, Sponger, take it away.
All right. Let's get into the fun. All right, so getting sassy in cyber, shiny hunters, and scattered spider breaches. So I really wanted to do this talk because this I guess disclaimer: views and opinions analyzed expressed herein are solely my own and do not represent the views of my employer, partners, or any affiliated organizations. All information is provided for general cybersecurity awareness. Should not be interpreted as formal security advice or official position. Just got to have that, just because, yeah, always got to have disclaimers. Thank you. All right, so I probably should have had an about me, which I didn't. But for many of you who have met me know I'm a sales engineer, and I say that because I joined the dark side about 4.5 years ago. So my background, I am a sales engineer. This is not a sales talk. This is more of, hey, I think SaaS is really interesting. It's a newer type of attack. The tools that I will, the blogs that I will be talking about, I do not work at those companies. It's just, I think, helpful information that I gathered from those blogs. But I am a sales engineer, and so what that means is I have a lot of clients that have been coming to me, or companies that come to me, and they say they're really concerned about SaaS. And so before, I mean, I've been a sales engineer for 4.5 years. Before this, I used to be a senior security analyst at a fintech company, and so my main responsibilities was like building out I was hired for our North American business units, and my main responsibilities was, one, like build out a compliance program, and two, like work with our AWS engineering team to secure our cloud, to secure the different product groups that we had. We had 4 different product groups that I helped manage and maintain. I know, like, security is not compliance and compliance is not security, but that's just my background. We didn't have two separate teams. We just kind of did both. But the compliance side actually helped me learn a lot of the technical side of just how products are developed. And I did have experience with, our finance and HR teams. They had different tools. We didn't necessarily manage them from a security standpoint. We probably should have, but it just wasn't priority. I'm sure, as many of you know, uh, just time is time. There's only so many hours in the day and week that you can focus on, and so I thought this would be interesting because of all the SaaS attacks that have been going on. So in getting into today's conversation, we're going to overview, like, the threat landscape. We're going to go over the August 26, 2025 attack. We're going to go over the previous attacks that happened. We're going to talk about the differences between the two attacks that happened earlier this year: social engineering versus supply chain methods. We'll go over the minor tactics, techniques, procedures, my experience, recommendations, resources, and if you have any open questions, I would love to have this be an open forum, because it's always fun to have a conversation with people versus just talking at you. So yeah, feel free to interrupt. I do have a hard stop at 7, though, or whatever time zone you're in, within an hour, at top of the hour. All right, so threat landscape. Scattered Spider versus Shiny Hunters. If you haven't read the news, Scattered Spider they're big game hunters. They're great at social engineering, and Shiny Hunters is another big big threat actor that targets SaaS apps. Both of them lately, they were initially separate, but we've started to see that they're joining together. So the first thing with Scattered Spider is, their tactics and techniques is that they actually fish groups for malicious OAuth connections. So this goes back to the June, July, like, Salesforce and CRM data thefts via phishing malicious OAuth connected apps. And then the shiny hunters, they actually use Trufflehog security tools to scan source code for secrets and OAuth tokens. So these threat actors previously had different tactics and techniques. Scattered Spiders was really into phishing, so they'd phish like an IT department, IT staff, finance person, HR person, um, and then shiny hunters would just use Trufflehog. And if you haven't used Trufflehog, it's a pretty awesome tool. It's really simple to use. You basically just point it at a like GitHub or anywhere you think will have secrets, and it'll just start pulling tokens out if there's public facing tokens or hard coded tokens in there or hard coded secrets. Um, so GitHub, like Trufflehog, is a great tool. You can use it offensively to scan GitHub repo, like public GitHub repos. You can also use it defensively to scan your own, to see if your developers or engineers are basically putting hard coded secrets in your environment. Another thing that I thought was interesting that I've learned from some of the Black Hills InfoSec courses that I've taken, like breaching the cloud, is that whenever you create a revision in GitHub, so if somebody posts a secret, and they revoke that secret, it's then stored in the history. So you can go into like the GitHub histories of the repos and see secrets in previous commits, and what was changed. And so it's really interesting that I think like these two threat actors are now joining forces. Um, so Scattered Spider does fishing. Shiny Hunters uses Trufflehog. Now there's a new group called Scattered Lapsus Hunters. I think the name is interesting. It's a long one for sure, but if you go into Obsidian, actually has like a really nice write up on the different Salesforce attacks and how they're targeting, how they're essentially targeting personnel. They're calling employees posing as IT support and directed them to Salesforce to connect an app and enter a code screen. And when they do that, they have like a Trojanized data loader style app that captured OAuth tokens. And then these tokens bypass MFA controls. So, people who say like MFA everything, yeah, it's good, but guess what? They can be bypassed. And then they allow the attackers to extract this volume through the Salesforce API. So this was Scattered Spider. Then there was a new attack, like the most recent attack, which changed. And then this is when they were doing either like a bit of both, like social engineering, but also using Trufflehog to scan environments. And it's interesting because they posted all of this on Telegram, and this is the reason why that these two threat actors are starting to join together. And this was just on August 8th. And I love I love this write up because they do have, and sorry for the language, but they do have information that just, or they do have like Telegram screenshots. And so they posted this saying like, oh, hey, guess what? Uh, CISA can't stop us, nor can the FBI, like Mandiant, any threat intel in the world. They actually sent like a threat to George Kurtz, who's the CEO of CrowdStrike, and they say, hey, like stop tracking us, remove all IOCs related to associated files for our three branches: Scattered Spider, Shiny Hunters, Lapsus Group. Failure to do so will bring consequences. So basically, like terrorist demand. And then they have it's kind of interesting because they actually talk crap on, if you go through this, they talk crap on Google, saying like their threat intel team is not great and they should really work with other companies to show this data. And so the point is it's really interesting that these two teams are growing, and the different types of campaigns that they brought out, are working. And so getting back to the August 26th attack. So this kind of goes over the attack via Salesforce Drift integration. So I think the root issue here is that security teams in general, they don't always understand what SaaS apps, like software as a service apps, are involved. When I was at my fintech company, we had Salesforce, but I never interacted with it because I just didn't manage it. It was for our sales team. HR had, HR apps that we never really interacted with it because HR managed. And so when you start to get into larger organizations, security doesn't always have visibility into those SaaS apps. And I feel like, years ago, I never really heard of major breaches like this that were occurring with specifically SaaS apps. But now everything's connected. Like if you think about it, like Salesforce has all of your client data in it for anything that you're doing, like contact information, phone numbers, email addresses, like contracts, like everything is in Salesforce. It really is a gem to go after, which is why I think this attack is so interesting. And then the same thing with HR and Workday too. Workday or other ADP, like other HR apps, there's finance information in there. And attackers are essentially what they're doing is in this specific August 26th attack, the they compromise the SalesLoft Drift platform that integrates with Salesforce. And Salesforce was the primary target, and Gmail was a secondary target. But because they compromised the Salesforce Drift, the initial access was that they abused the Salesforce Drift integrations via compromised OAuth tokens and API keys, which then gave them access to Salesforce, and they connected to Salesforce via these OAuth tokens. They queried a boatload of data, and then they used those OAuth tokens for Drift Actor access like Google Workspaces accounts. And so it really is brilliant because everything is so connected nowadays. And I'm pretty sure if I asked anybody here, like, hey, how are you monitoring your third party SaaS apps? I don't. Hopefully, you have something in place. If you don't, like, this is something that people are targeting and is or threat actors are targeting and is a risk. So when I talk to a lot of clients or companies in general, it's really like they're really concerned about it. Like almost every other call is like, oh, hey, we're really concerned about Salesforce and SaaS apps because they're our crown jewels. And so this is why I wanted to do this talk. But the credential access, it's interesting because the actors search for credentials to even pivot into AWS access keys, passwords, Snowflake tokens, and more. So they're using they use Drift from SalesLoft as a connector into Salesforce, and then try to pivot into Gmail, into potentially into AWS, or they try to look for AWS, and then they can also identify users within Google, like revoke tokens, disable Drift workspace integrations. And so my, my point is that a lot of this connects, and threat actors aren't just, compromising endpoints anymore or identities in cloud. They're doing all of that. They're compromising maybe a SaaS app to then compromise identities within those SaaS apps, and then also pivot to other SaaS apps. And so there were two different types of methods that occur within these different attacks and the timelines. So the social engineering method I'll go through first because that's the one that happened first. Is that malicious actor impersonates IT support and contacts employees. When you're thinking about this offensively, if like I don't know, I'm an offensive attacker, I can easily go through LinkedIn because everybody posts on LinkedIn, and find out who the developers are, who the engineers are of a company, who is part of like HR, who is part of finance, because everybody posts on LinkedIn. So it's a really good way to enumerate personnel in that company that's being targeted. Not to say the threat actor did this, but that's an example of how to think offensively. I'm not saying go do this for malicious purposes. Again, this is more just for learning. But then the actor used these employee approved malicious connected app. So they fished an employee. They used the malicious connected app. They exfiltrate the sales data, and then the impact was data theft and extortion. So this type of scalability, um, each company must be attacked separately. There's a higher chance of failure due to controls against like help desk social engineering. But social engineering, if many of you have been to DEF CON, you've seen social engineering village. I mean, I was there this year. It was fun. Learned a lot, but I mean, it only takes one person, like like one person to essentially cause an issue, and that's what makes social engineering so effective. But the other piece of this is the supply chain method, where malicious actors are compromising OAuth tokens for SaaS applications. So instead of using social engineering and contacting support employees, they're they're using Trufflehog to search GitHub repos for secrets. And so now you have to worry about your engineers and developers hard coding secrets in. Engineers, developers, they're not there to focus on security. I mean, good ones are, but they're there to engineer and develop. And so they don't always have a security mindset, and that's okay, just because it's the nature of the beast and why you have security professionals at your organization. But I thought this was really interesting because the malicious actor basically uses application to steal data from the environment. So they compromise an OAuth token, and then they only need one company only needs to be compromised for a specific OAuth token for SaaS applications. You can only one company needs to be compromised, and then it's 10x return compared to the earlier attack. And so this supply chain attack was the most recent attack that occurred. um, any questions on that before I move forward to the next slide? Figured I'd ask. Cool. All right. So the MITRE TTPs. So the reason why intelligence changes all the time. There's always new information. Uh, this is There's always new information that's going on. Things change. Groups fall out of trust with each other. But right now, based off of the information shared on Telegram, um, give me one second. Sorry, my cat's going crazy. All right, sorry, my cat came in and was like meowing, meowing. Um, anyway, so the essentially these threat actors are now working together, and when you combine both of you know both OAuth token for SaaS applications and for social engineering methods, it can be pretty dangerous. And so that's why I think these teams are moving forward together. There are different tactics and techniques that they're using. So Scattered Spider, their initial access is usually spearphishing via service. Um, uh, they have persistence with account manipulation. They look for additional cloud credentials, device registrations. They're really good at device registration. I'm sure many of you heard that there was somebody in Florida got uh, caught for SIM swapping, and he was SIM swapping a ton of phones, and so he got arrested for it like some time ago. But yeah, so device registration, modify authentication process, conditional access policies, privilege escalation. They abuse elevation control mechanisms. They again focus on cloud. Cloud is very heavily focused here as well. And then for lateral movement, they use internal spear phishing, application access token, session cookies, and then for defensive evasion, indicator removals, clear mailbox data. So they're removing their tracks from your environment as well to try to stay hidden. And then when it comes to collection, it's email collection, remote email collection, code repositories, SharePoint. SharePoint's a big one. It's really interesting. I'll get into SharePoint in a second. Any messaging applications like Teams, for example, if somebody can get a compromised account in Teams, they can gather quite a bit of information about the company. Command and control, proxy, or sorry, that's for overlap, but um, yeah, and then getting to ShinyHunters, they're really good at masquerading. They rename legitimate utilities. They collect customer relationship management software information, and then they exfil the data transfer size limits. And they usually exfil over a C2 channel. And so there's quite a bit of overlap between these two threat actors. And so now they're working together to target big games. And what does that mean? I think it's as like a previous security analyst, I think in order to have a good defense, you need to understand what the offense is doing. And so this goes back to my experience of talking to companies that need that just don't have the visibility. And I talk from all different clients, from smaller organizations to larger organizations, and usually other teams like finance, HR, sales, they're siloed teams. They Security may not even be aware of what's happening. How so you really have the first thing that you need is visibility into those toolings. There are CASBs that are out there. I've set up a CASB like sky high in the past. It was a pain in my experience. There's other CASBs that exist, but you usually have to proxy the authentication traffic or set up a server or to like in between the authentication between your SaaS apps. So I think the newest one is SSPM or SaaS security posture management, where you're connecting via API via like one tool to all of your SaaS apps and then viewing, hey, what users do you have in the environment? What are their permissions across all of those applications in the environment? And so there's tools that are out there that can help with this, but I think overall, it's been a big focus with a lot of companies that I've talked to, and there are tools that are out there that can help, but a lot of orgs don't have visibility into this. So another interesting thing is when you bring AI into this mix, I think it makes it even worse because if you have like a SSPM tool that can monitor for OAuth connections, I've seen security teams or I've worked with security teams who, when they search for like an AI OAuth connection, they didn't even know it existed and it has full rewrite access into your entire SaaS app. Like all the files it has access to, basically God mode access. And so when you bring AI into this, like AI agents and things like that, oh well yeah, it makes, this like we'll just connect this with full rewrite access. And so even just monitoring like OAuth connections for AI apps is I think fascinating because you really don't know what these other like HR, finance teams, sales teams are doing because they're siloed. Unless you have like a tool that has visibility into that, you can't really assess the risk until you have the visibility. And then users are over privileged. It's just over provision. That's another one. Onboarding, offboarding issues. I was in charge of onboarding and offboarding, and or at least like auditing it in my last job. Sometimes within HR, a ticket could get missed. If somebody like a senior engineer, senior developer could get missed. Or maybe it's not done, like the IT team didn't get the ticket, or maybe they're just slammed and they missed it. But there's always I've seen issues where sometimes users don't get deprovision and they still have like God mode access into your environment, whether it's like GitHub or Salesforce or like ADP, like Workday, some of the more critical applications that you have, you simply just don't know until you have visibility into it. And that was issues that I faced in my last job, especially like users are over provisioned, and then we had some onboarding, offboarding issues, especially if you're not using SSO. I mean, when I was working at my last job, we had like a Jira task or a Jira like ticket for each user that left the company, and under that was 30 different tasks. Like we were in the process of setting up SSO and single sign-on for all of our applications, but not every company is at that level of maturity, and so having just visibility into that, I think is huge, and just looking at those SSPM apps can be helpful. So my recommendation for this is, again, I feel like I've harped on this enough. You have to have visibility into these SaaS apps and the OAuth connections, and you have to audit those. You have to make sure, hey, like, especially with the use of AI, everybody's saying, oh, AI agents are the future. Like AI is blowing up. I mean, everybody's saying, oh, there's an AI bubble. But people are connecting, companies are connecting, or different groups may be connecting AI agents into your environment that have full rewrite access, and you don't even know about it. And if there's a risk there, or it's not a good app, you may want to review it. So you really have to review and audit those API keys, audit user permissions, ensure keys are not in your code, and then again, you could do this via like an SSPM or even a CASB service. I think the difference between CASB and SSPM, one is your house is already built, like an SSPM or SaaS security posture management tool. Your house is pretty much already built because you have all these SaaS apps, and you're just laying the piping, the foundation to connect everything via API. I personally think it's a little bit easier to set up than a CASB. CASB's, because you usually have to have some type of like proxy server or something that monitors the authentication traffic and things like that. They do have different purposes, but SSPM is like, hey, you have your house that's already built. Let's make sure within our SaaS apps, like the doors lock. The windows are barred. You have cameras up to view the events that are occurring in the environment. And then with a CASB, it's going to be you kind of there's more. It takes more time to like set up those toolings. But yeah, so first things, essentially, companies may have siloed. So the issue is companies may have siloed teams, siloed tooling. You may not even have visibility on that. So you got to have visibility and then review and audit, API keys, who has access to what, AI agents, audit the user permissions, have a good onboarding and offboarding process and audit that regularly because you never know. I mean, malicious insiders, I feel like you hear about those all the time. You never know when somebody is a angry engineer or developer or salesperson or whomever, and they want to do something malicious and potentially exfil data, or they may get paid to do it from another threat actor because there's a lot of like uh, there's a lot of bribes going on to do things like ransomware as a service or paying for access keys and things like that that are out there. So my advice, audit those. These are the resources that I used. This Google Threat Intel blog had some interesting information on it. I really did like the Obsidian write-ups because they had a write-up for it, and then they also had a more deep dive into it. And there are other resources that you can use out there, but these are the main ones that I wanted to use. I know CrowdStrike has quite a few resources on this as well. Oh, but if you have the paid service, that's great. If you don't, it's fine too. We do have some blogs written about this, but I thought Obsidian did a good write up, so kudos to them. And then Trufflehog, if you're ever looking for Trufflehog and you want to check it out, it's pretty straightforward to set up. You can just run it on a VM, like a Linux VM, and then just pick a GitHub repo and start scanning. Obviously, do not do it maliciously. I do not recommend that. It's for educational purposes. You can use this defensively on a defensive side, or you could use it offensively. I don't condone that. So, uh, yeah, I know that was a pretty quick talk, but any questions, comments on that? Feedback? And thank you for listening.
Um, I just wanted to say like I was at a hackathon in Oceanside earlier in the month, and I was telling all the kids there to try and get used to using Travelhog because um all of them were using like AI agents and stuff like that, and I wanted to really let them, it's from some cybersecurity, and it's a bunch of kids that are just getting in there to code and getting into it. I wanted them to get in the habit of using Travelhog just because I had known that it was used in this sort of thing in a lot of the reviews I've seen. So it's really, yeah, really good tool.
Yeah, Pacu is another good tool for the cloud side of the house. If you're looking for like cloud, like privilege escalation exploitation, like Pacu, that's another really good tool and pretty straightforward to use. I may have a write up on it, or I may do another talk about it because I am taking a class by Black Hills InfoSec, breaching the cloud. It is a solid class. I paid like 550 for it. I paid out of pocket for it because I love their training. So shout out to Black Hills InfoSec. But yeah, I've been going through Bobolux course, and uh, we've had Paku talked about at our local DC 858 meetup groups. But also I wanted a little bit more like guided hands-on experience for some of the reaching the cloud stuff, and so that's been fun too. So yeah, Trufflehog's good for, or they mentioned Trufflehog in that, but also Paku too for privilege escalation and things like that. Yeah, you could use AI for it too, Grady, but this will get into the topic of AI, but I feel like sometimes the context and like background information that you get from just like AI running it is somewhat lost. And so when you try to get like deeper into troubleshooting or deeper into like an exploit that you're working on or what you're trying to do, it makes it a little bit harder because it's obfuscated. So the critical thinking side of it, I feel like is lost a little bit there, unless you're having AI like explain every command for you. Because I've used it to explain some things and it's helpful, like each step of the way. But yeah, there is a level of obfuscation from it that can affect like your learning experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, like in terms of the AI, I meant like so it was a community college hackathon, and so a lot of these kids were like, just learning, just like taking their first coding classes and stuff like that. And I
Yeah,
noticed a lot of them weren't like using AI agents or trying to use it because that was one of the categories for like some of the awards that were in that hackathon.
Oh, nice.
And so I kind of was just telling them, like, get in the habit of actually using, running Trufflehog and, running a scan kind of to check to make sure you aren't leaving those in.
Yeah. Yeah, and that okay, yeah, that's a good one too. There was a there's it's funny because I was at B-sides as well, and one of the talks we went to was basically AI's like slop code. Just how often AI is writing code for you. They're creating packages that don't exist, and then threat actors are also exploiting those as well. And if it can hard code secrets, so like in the future, we may have, you're going to have AI agents that's going to be doing scans for credentials to make sure you don't have it, but you may also be using AI to generate code for you. So you'll have it be writing code and doing checks for you based off different agents. So it's, yeah, the AI side of the house is really wild. I've been tinkering it with more and more like MCP servers and using like Cloud Code just for basic commands to try to understand like small concepts for how things works if I just can't wrap my head around it. But it's been fun and interesting to use.
Yeah,
But it
I'll
also brings a new set of risks too.
I was gonna bring up a quick point too about secrets. I know I did talk, man, probably a year and a half ago about pre-commit hooks, and that was mostly around like before committing your code, having your code be scanned. And one of the scan options you can have is scanning for secrets, and there's Trouble Hog that's really good. I also pair it up with another tool called Detect Secrets, which is created by Yelp, because I found like Trouble Hog kind of has their focus of secrets it looks for, but other tools kind of focus on looking for other types of secrets. So that's something to keep in mind. One secret tool is not always going to find everything. Um, Another thing too is I think GitHub actually will have they have some built-in tools that will actually alert you or your SOC if certain secrets get leaked out in the repos. Um, and yeah, other than that, yeah, just want to do a quick shout out. Great talk, Sponger.
Yeah, thanks all for attending.
Thanks,
Any
Spongy,
other
for the talk.
questions for
Oh,
Sponger?
I did
Yeah,
have
any other
one
questions?
comment just about the CASB and SSPM logic as well to definitely be careful on some of those things because like even if you have a CASB implemented, I guess that ASB might not have all of the integrations. So like that's an experience that I've had recently is like lots of new AI services, for example, are popping up, but the CASB doesn't necessarily have that integration built yet. So that is kind of an ongoing issue, more than just AI services, obviously, but SSPM is the same story, right? The integration has to be already built.
Yeah, and that is a good call out. There are different SSPM solutions, whether it's like um, Adaptive Shield from CrowdStrike, Obsidian, other tools. There are different SPSPMs and even CASBs that are out there, but something I would recommend, and this is this is from someone who's coming from the sales side, make sure they have some of the integrations you work with. Some tools have more. I will try to keep it by unbiased opinion. Some tools have more integrations than others, so find a tool that works well for your org and has those specific applications that you're concerned about. And you are very much right, Cyclops. Not every tool is in there, so there is still some risk that, especially if you use a lot of tools that just aren't part of SSPMs or even CASB, then it's just like, all right, well, how do I get this information? And that's honestly a good question. I'm not sure outside of pulling things from API and doing it manually, if they even have the APIs to do so.
Yeah, and that's ultimately like what it boils down to is like you're almost just looking for keywords within like HTTPS requests that are outbound for everything, but it still comes down to like even the integration that that CASB has built for that specific service sometimes because some CASBs will be like, oh, this is an edit action versus like a post action kind of thing. So they might have different granularity into each of those individual SaaS applications.
Yeah, that's a good call out too. Some may only have like if you have detections with some SSPMs, they may have detections but no like preventions. I think most SSPMs are mostly detect only. There may be some response actions into it, like revoking OAuth connections, but usually that's a bit more manual, at least from my experience. Any other
Um,
questions or comments?
I was just gonna make a comment back on the secrets discussion. One thing to keep in mind is a lot of folks um, don't realize that um, their bash history can have secrets in it. Let's say you're running some sort of command and you had an inline password in there as part of like a flag in a command that can get inadvertently saved um, as history in your bash history, and that could be used for um, you know theft of your credentials as well. So something to keep in mind. I'm not aware of any tools that like search or detect for that. I think you can run um, Truffle Hog against your bash history. I think ideally I've thought in the past it'd be great to have a tool that would like scan your bash history and then look for secrets and just remove that line from it. So those would just be redact or just redact it maybe. But yeah, keep in mind there's lots of different areas where these like secrets or keys or other things like that can be stored on your system that you may not be aware of.
Yeah, and that's something where I think like GitHub history, like if you can't find commits that have like hard coded secrets in them, look at the history because somebody may have accidentally posted a secret and then they deleted it. Well, guess what? That delete shows up in the GitHub history. So unless you scrub that GitHub history, those secrets are still there. And that's why Truffle Hog is really um is interesting because you can look at that information. I mean, you can even just go through GitHub and do like a just fuzzing. You can run commands on just like secrets. It's pretty simple to use even without Truffle Hawk. You just run in the search history because you can technically search through any public facing repo. So you can search for like cloud secrets if you find like um, the parameters for how cloud secrets are used and declared. You can just leverage the you can leverage those when searching for them. So there's some interesting ways out there to get to hunt for those secrets.
Yeah, kudos for anybody that can find a tool that does like a deep scan of your system for secrets. I know Trouble Hog's one of them, but if it's something that can be like looked, I don't know if it'll look at bash history or other areas like that, but that would be interesting.
Yeah, and even I mean, we're kind of digging down the secrets rabbit hole, but even in when you're registered or when you're using like AWS CLI or Azure CLI, if you authenticate, there's a secrets file that are held locally. So if you compromise a host or compromise an identity that gets you access to a host, and you get access to that host, then you can search for those where those files are stored and steal those secrets. So you got to be careful with when you authenticate via CLI to like AWS and Azure resources as well.
Yeah, I'll say to that there is if you're leveraging a lot of password manager tools like Bitwarden, One Password, other tools like that, a lot of them will have CLI tools that will allow you to dynamically inject your passwords into commands without actually saving your passwords in files. What will happen is you'll try to like run a command or a script or code where you would normally put a password in there for like testing or whatnot. You can have it dynamically go and pull that password from your secrets manager and inject it on the fly so it doesn't get saved in plain text on the system. You can also every like Linux, Mac, and even Windows have built-in key rings, or also known as like chains. I think Windows is called Windows Credential Manager. You can leverage those as well if you don't have a proprietary password manager. So those are really great. Like a lot of times, I will save my passwords in those secure password credential vaults, and then if I'm gonna have my bash RC file pull from the put a secret that's going to be saved as environment variable that I'm gonna be using for whatever. I'll have it pull from the keyring securely. Sometimes it'll prompt you for your credentials or biometrics if you're using like a Mac. But it's pretty flexible. So it's just another option you can use without saving uh, passwords in clear text.
These are really great tips. I was just thinking, how many fire emojis can I use? There are tip shop.
I'm glad you enjoyed. Yeah, if you haven't read the chat either, Jesse's mentioning tools like, was it Snaffler, for Bash RC, looking at history, uh, but yeah, SnapCon.
Yeah,
Snaffler.
my favorite there is what Sean was talking about, which is like finding stuff from password managers. There's a Cobalt Strike thing that I was doing that the beacons just had built-in LastPass. So inject into a PID or process that can probably a browser, and then dump LastPass stuff that's in memory, the master key, and then you're in LastPass, right? Fun. But hey, thanks, Sponger. That was awesome. Now I'm gonna have to look at OAuth things a lot more. Arr.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be honest. I never really thought about like the OAuth connections, and that's why the silos I think is really interesting. Especially with how they're being exploited, just because I just didn't have time in my last job. But now it's like, oh man, if you really start to think about the risk of some of these SaaS apps and connections they have, it's a little scary. And a lot of companies that I've talked to, they're definitely concerned. So thought I'd share some knowledge. So thank you for attending.
Quick
Thank
question
you,
for
Sponger.
Sponger. Go ahead, if you're going, Magos.
Thanks, John. What's up, Cyclops?
I was just gonna say, would and Jesse actually might also know the question or the answer to this question too, because he's mentioned this tool in the past, but would Mimikatz also be like an applicable tool to kind of help you dump like some memories from like Windows memory kind of stuff, or like passwords from Windows memory? Is that another applicable
I
to this situation, or am I misreading that?
Mimikatz is more for endpoint. At
Mhm.
least the way I've seen it be used and the way I'm familiar with it. Mimikatz is more for endpoint. I mean, you can dump credentials from memory and compromise like domain controllers, but
Mhm.
it's still unless you could somehow get into the browser, because a lot of the with SaaS apps like everything's done in, well, I guess not everything's done in the browser because you have SSO. I mean, ugh. See that this is why like it gets tricky is because you have like SSO authentication, you have on-prem ID, you have Entra ID, and when you get into Entra ID, like everything connects, especially like Azure exploitation. If you can get access to like a application administrator or a domain admin or sorry global admin, like you can get access to other things. But if you can if you can compromise an SSO account that has access to some of those SaaS tools, then yeah, you could probably pull in some data that way too. But that's a thing. A lot of tools nowadays, especially SaaS apps, like everything's tied together. Like through SSO logins, you could purchase those off the dark web, and so then it just gets back to identity management, which is a huge thing. But and sorry, I'm going down like a little bit of a rabbit hole because everything's just connected now. But I think Mimikatz is more for endpoint or even like Entra ID, like depending on how they have their authentication set up.
Makes sense.
And
Thank you.
please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, if you have any other experience, because yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, nightmare mode is all yeah, creating Jira implementing AI with hooks into everyone having to use it on a team. Yeah, or if if a Confluence server is public facing and has a remote code execution that gets popped and then people are running code on that. I've had that happen before too, which sucks. But yeah, audit your SaaS apps. Any other questions? I do got to drop in a few. Sweet.
All right. Well, thanks everybody
Great.
for spending their Tuesday night with us. Thanks, Sponger, for doing another great talk.
Yeah. Anybody else
Yeah,
have
thanks,
one other
man.
question? Yeah, no worries, Chris. I thought I heard somebody come off mute. Last question.
And I was going to say, great presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Abhi.
Yeah, I was just thinking like we could all be here the whole night.
Yeah, I mean, usually
Because
these run late, but I do have to go, unfortunately,
because
in a
it's
few
so
minutes.
so exciting, like that everybody can like, keep talking from their experience. And like we could be here the whole night.
Viboni's trying to do cert me. Do we have the cert bot? Cert start.
Yeah, I'll get it started.
Yeah, we do
Or,
have.
I guess me too.
You can get CPE credits for the talk if you run the. Looks like the cert start bot is just starting. You can type in !cert space me, and then you should be able to get a little cert. It'll be for an hour. That way you can get your CPE credits because everyone needs those.
Even for tonight.
Yep.
So hey, Sponger, have you heard of Hack Smarter
I have not actually.
for training? Okay, so you brought up Patco, and I am taking their AWS. Where is it? Here, I'll put a link to the Hack Smarter platform in the text. But I'm taking one of their courses that was from Simply Cyber, though, before he moved to his own platform, and it had Paku stuff in it. But my point of bringing it up, it's super cheap. It's like I
Yeah.
don't know, $20, $30. I don't know. It was super cheap.